A Werewolf Story by Barry Wiles. Prologue. As all of you may know, I have gathered you all here today to inform you that the Alpha of the Lunar Shadow pack will be visiting our pack in a couple days. The reason for this is because we have decided to create an alliance between our packs. Alpha Brian spoke to my pack. His booming voice echoed in the room. A few people let out gasps and my eyes widened. Why the hell would Alpha Brian want to get involved with them? This is absurd. Alpha Brian continued after everyone hushed down. We have made a deal. He will give us his best warriors who will train our warriors to be stronger. He has not yet decided what my end of the deal would be. He will either make the deal official or disregard it. So, please clean up your houses and get organized so we can make a good impression. That is all I have to say. Have a good evening. The Lunar Shadow pack is coming here? I've heard stories about their ruthless Alpha. Even his own pack is somewhat scared of him. Alpha Parker. His name doesn't even sound scary, but I don't want to assume anything. Lucky for our pack, the Lunar Shadow pack is the neighboring back to the east. Note the sarcasm. Definitely don't want to mess with them, that's for sure. Some rumors have gone around saying that a group of pups were playing by the boundary line, and Alpha Parker was there. I think the rumors had said that he was arranging his guards or something like that, and he captured the pups and taken them under captivity for crossing the line. They were never heard from again. Like who freaking does that? I got up from my seat and made my way over to my father, the beta of the pack. Hey Dad. You know I love you, I greeted, putting on my best smile while placing my arm around his shoulder. My dad chuckled as he turned to me. Yes, you may go for a run, but be back before dark. The grin on my face grew. I leaned and kissed him on the cheek. Thanks Dad. Tell Mom to leave the dishes for me. He nodded his head in response before he replied, Sure thing, kiddo. I removed my arm from his shoulder before turning to the door and heading out. I pushed the door open and exited out of the pack house. I smelled the air and the smell of fresh rain hit my nose and smiled. I love the smell of rain. The cool fall breeze blew past me, hitting my skin. Immediately goosebumps formed on my arms. Better shift now so I can get warm. I walked over to the forest behind the pack house and went over to one of the tall trees in search for a good tree to shift behind. As I walked, little creatures scurried past me. A doe stood a few feet away. It lifted its head and stared at me, examining me to see if I was a threat. Realizing that I wasn't going to hurt it, it continued to graze on the grass. After finding a nice thick tree to change behind, I stripped out of my clothes before imagining myself in my midnight black wolf form. The sound of bones cracking filled my ears and I could feel my bones reshaping. First started growing on my body and my ears became pointed. I felt my teeth become pointed. After a few moments later I was standing in my wolf form. Finally, you've decided to shift, my wolf Irene stated sarcastically. I mentally rolled my eyes at her. Shut up, I snapped at her while rolling my eyes. You know I've been busy. Irene didn't say anything after, and I'm thankful she didn't. I moved my clothes closer to the tree to keep them hidden so I could get them when I return. Trotting to the trail, I didn't waste any time before I took off in the direction to the edge of our territory. The boundary line to the neighboring pack to the north. The trees all became a blur as I raced. The bright orange leaves covered the forest floor due to the late October weather. The wind blew past me and through my fur, which felt refreshing. My paws pound against the ground as I let my wolf take control. Running in my wolf form is probably my most favorite thing to do besides training. Because my father is a beta, I got his strength and speed. I don't mean to brag or anything, but I am one of the best in the pack. It's not really a shocker though, because a lot of females in my pack participate in the training and also take shifts in guarding the territory. My father said that before Alpha Brian made Luna Autumn the Luna, females weren't able to participate in anything and could only prepare meals, clean and produce and care pups. Luna Autumn demanded that the females are treated equally. From then on it changed. I slowed down into a slower pace so I could check my surroundings. Tightening my head up to look through all the trees towering over me, I noticed that it was starting to get dark. The sun was already setting. Wow, it sure gets dark way too quickly for my liking. I should probably start heading home. I turned around to head back to my pack but stopped in my tracks when I heard a cracking sound that made my ears perk. Lifting my nose up, I sniffed the air. A strong foreign smell filled my nose. A smell that I knew didn't belong here. I skimmed the area with my enhanced eyesight but didn't see anything. Shrugging it off, I sprinted off into the direction I came from. In a matter of 30 minutes, I slowed down once I reached the tree my clothes were located. Shifting back into my human form, I pulled my shirt over my head and pulled my pants on. I came out from behind the tree and jogged to the pack house to retrieve my bag I left. Walking up the steps to the porch, I swung the door open and entered. I was greeted by warmth and a sweet smell of pumpkin rolls that was probably being baked. Pack members were in the halls chilling and chatting with each other. Pups ran around chasing each other. "Good evening, Jamie," one of the women in the pack greeted me as we passed each other. I nodded my head towards her with a warm smile. Continuing my journey towards the living room, the place where I remember placing my bag before the meeting, I turned the corner into the living room. Someone leaving bumped into me. I looked up and frowned when I saw who it was. "Well, hello there, princess," the person smirked down at me. "What do you want, Anthony?" I asked with a sigh but couldn't help the little smile that crossed my lips. You see, Anthony is the son of the Delta. I wouldn't call him a friend of mine, but he does follow me around in an annoying way. He does hit on me and throws in some random cheesy lines during some of our conversations. Obviously it never works, but he doesn't ever stop. It's kinda cute to be honest, but still. "I want you to accompany me to a pack party next weekend with me," Anthony states while smirking, not giving me the chance to respond. A pack party is a party that any wolf from another pack can attend. They can meet their mates and get wasted whatever they'd like. I mean, it would be kind of fun to go. I do like to party when I'm in the mood. Maybe I'll meet my mate, not that I really want one though. I'll turn 19 in a few weeks. I'm a November baby. November 24th actually. But I've never been to a pack party before. And this party will be special. It's called the mating bond, and it's when they do something special for unmated wolves. They do this thing where they allow you to search for your mate, and that's when they can complete the bond. It's going to be at Thunder Creek Pack, Anthony explains. It catches my interest the slightest bit. "Sounds fun," I commented, pretending to think. "Sure, why not?" Anthony's smirk grew wider. "Well, I wasn't going to give you much of an option, princess." I shot him a glare for using that nickname. Anthony calls me that because he knows it annoys me. The reason for him calling me that is because my favorite Disney movie is Aladdin, and since my name is Jasmine, he calls me princess, very much like the character. He leaned against the frame of the living room, eyeing me up and down as silence fell in between us. My eyes widened when I realized why I was here in the first place. "Shit," I shouted before pushing Anthony out of the way so I could actually get into the room. There were women sitting on the black leather couches sewing. There were pups sitting on the floor engaged in the SpongeBob episode playing on the TV. My eyes scanned the room until they landed on the black bag just chilling against the side of one of the couches closest to the wall. I quickly went over to it and grabbed it before jogging out of the room and brushing past Anthony. "I'll text you later, princess," Anthony called out flirtatiously. Rolling my eyes, I speed walked/jogged out of the pack house before actually sprinting down the sidewalks to my house. Since my dad is beta, we get the second largest house since the alpha gets the largest. When my house came into view, I ran faster until I was on the very large porch. Quietly, I opened the door and stepped inside before turning around. I kept the handle pushed down and used my other hand to gently push the door shut. As I turned back around, I nearly screamed bloody murder. I gulped loudly as my mom stared at me with her eyes narrowed furiously while tapping her foot angrily. My dad stood next to her, attempting to look just as furious. My dad is more lean back than my mom. He's basically my jail-free card. "And what's your excuse, young lady?" my mom asked me while she crossed her arms over her chest. Chapter 1. I opened my mouth hesitantly. I glanced at my dad, giving him a pleading look. All he did was give me an apologetic shrug. Sending him a quick glare, I looked back towards my mom. "I'm really sorry, Mom, but seriously, I'm just late by like 25 minutes. I had to grab my bag from the pack house," I explained, choosing my words carefully, not wanting to make her even more mad. My mom's facial expression didn't change. After a while she sighed. "Well, since you probably got held back at the pack house, I'll let it slide. But don't let it happen again. Now go get cleaned up and ready for dinner." "Thank you, Mom." I beamed brightly at her before kissing her cheek and hugging my dad. Walking past them, I headed up the stairs and down the hall to my room. When I reached my white double doors to my room, I swung one door open and entered. I smiled as I took in the bright sea green colored walls, my favorite color. I threw my bag onto my bed while letting out a sigh as I sat down on my black desk chair. What was I supposed to do again? I spun around childishly on my desk chair while trying to remember. "Change, remember?" Irene stated in a dull tone. "Oh yeah. Thanks," I muttered to her before heading to my closet. I changed into a pair of sweats and a t-shirt before heading out of the room. After going down the stairs, I went into the dining room. My dad was placing a pan filled with my mom's famous homemade macaroni and cheese. A Pac's favorite. My mom always makes it for when the Pac has a cookout. "Sweetie, can you get the plates?" My mom asked as she walked in carrying a bowl of taco salad, another Pac favorite. "Okay, Mom," I reply as I left the room. The dining room was right next to the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen and opened one of the cupboards that contained the plates. I grabbed enough for my mom, dad, my 10-year-old twin sisters Shelby and Zoe, my 14-year-old brother Andrew who in the process of his first shift which is going to happen pretty soon, and lastly one for me. 6 plates in total. Carefully I took the plate tightly in my hands. Definitely don't want to drop them knowing my clumsy self. "You don't say," Irene comments mockingly. I could feel her smirking in my head. "Do you always have to comment?" I snap before blocking her out and continue to deliver the plates. I place a plate in each spot. New York Dad usually sits at one end of the table and no one sits at the other end. The dining table is supposed to fit 12 but obviously we only use 6 spots. Once I finished I went to my usual spot between Shelby and Zoe who were chatting about some boys from school. They were talking about how cute they were and such. I'm guessing they were in our pack. But I could be wrong. The elementary school they attend was a werewolf school. I chuckled before looking at Andrew who was awfully quiet. He had a goofy grin on his face and was texting away on his phone. I raised my eyebrow at him. "Yo little bro," I call out to him, "you're being quiet and what's with that stupid grin?" I question him while wiggling my eyebrows. I already know that grin all too well. It was a girl he was texting. Andrew looked up from his phone and glares at me before looking back down again. "He's texting his all-time crush Reagan?" Shelby butted in with an evil smirk on her face. Andrew's face reddens. "She's not my crush." He immediately protested. "Who's this crush you speak of?" My mom pipes up suddenly interested by the word crush. "Mom?" Andrew whines. He then glares at Shelby who smirks even wider. Now it's Zoe's turn to speak. "Oh come on Drew. I've walked by your bedroom and heard you moan out, 'Oh Reagan.'" "Faster Reagan." "Yes babe." She imitated Andrew. I choked on my food as I heard what she said. I looked up from my plate and stared with my eyes wide. Andrew's face was so red, you could probably cook some weenies by the heat radiating off his cheeks. My mom stared in complete horror while my dad tried not to laugh as was Shelby and Zoe. The room was silent for only a few moments until my mom finally broke out, "Andrew Zachary Davis. You are too young for this. I will not tolerate you releasing yourself because of some random girl. I don't care if your hormones start kicking in, learn to control it." Her voice was stern while using her death glare at Andrew that we all know too well as the full name thing. No one dared to say anything. That's basically how dinner went. Every now and then all of us, except Mom, would sneak glances at Andrew and laugh silently. I looked over at my dad who was trying to keep a straight face. After I finished eating I picked up my plate and took it to the kitchen to wash my dishes. I placed my plate in the sink along with my fork and turned the water on hot. I then heard someone walk into the kitchen. "Hey Dad," I greeted when I saw him through the corner of my eye. "Hey kiddo," he responded with a greet as well. "There will be a dinner tomorrow night with Alpha Parker, the Alpha of the Lunar Shadow Pack. The dinner will be held at the Alpha's house and our family as well as the Delta and his family will be attending." I shudder at the thought of being in the same room as Alpha Parker. At least I won't be alone because of Anthony. "Okay Dad. Good night," I say as I place dishes in their correct places before heading up to my room. After changing I climbed into my nice warm bed and picked up my phone. My brows furrowed when I noticed I had to text. Serena-7:46 p.m. "Hey girl. What's up?" Anthony-8:20 p.m. "I guess I'll see you at the dinner, winky face." I first texted Serena back. Me-8:27 p.m. "Just finished dinner." I waited a few minutes until my phone vibrated. Serena-8:31. "Cool. So what's the plan for tomorrow? Isn't Alpha Parker from the Lunar Shadow Pack coming?" Me-8:32 p.m. "Yeah, I even have to attend a stupid dinner at the Pack House and Alpha Parker will be there." Serena-8:34. "Oh good luck, you'll need it." I switched to Anthony's text and sent a reply to him. Me-8:37. "Poor me." Anthony-8:39. You know you love me, babe. Me-8:40. You wish. I shut off my phone and decided that I should probably get some sleep. Tomorrow my pack has to prepare to meet the one and only Alpha Parker. Come on. You gotta pick something, Jamie, Serena groaned as I sat comfortably on my bed scrolling through my phone. I didn't spare a glance at her. I don't have anything good, and why do I need to dress up? Serena let out a sigh. Because you are the beta's daughter and maybe you'll meet your mate. That caused me to look up and scoff. I don't want a mate. I don't need a mate, especially one from the Lunar Shadow pack. They have a pretty good reputation I don't want to get involved with. Fine, I gave a defeated sigh and stood up, walking over to my closet. I skimmed through my dresses and smiled when I spotted a sleeveless black dress. It wasn't too much. I held it out to Serena. Her face brightened as a huge grin grew on her face. This is perfect. She squealed and shoved me to the bathroom to change. I glanced at myself in the mirror before undressing. I slid on the dress over my head and it fit on nicely. The dress had fit on my curves nicely, showing off my legs. Because of all the training I do, I have a strong body. I've been asked out numerous times, but of course I deny them. I'm not exactly into dating or anything, but I have dated a few times. I'm not a virgin anymore and I regret it, but I can't take it back. I looked at myself in the mirror once again and smiled at my reflection. My black straight hair just laid down my back. Turning towards the door, I opened it and exited. Serena turned to me and grinned. You look sexy. Every unmated male in both packs will be staring at you. My cheeks heated up at her comment. Probably not. I laughed. They would. Now let's do our hair and makeup. I'll do yours and you do mine, she stated as she led me back to my bathroom. She laid out all my different makeup while I pulled out my curling wand and flat iron, plugging them both in. I took a seat on the stool sitting in front of my counter. Serena then picked up the curling wand and started curling my hair. When she was done, we switched spots so I could straighten her hair. We applied our makeup and smiled when we were finished. You look amazing, Serena cried out as she enveloped me in a hug. Thank you, sorry. You look beautiful as well, I grinned as I looked at Serena. She smiled back before linking her arm with mine. Let's get going, we can clean up later. By later, I think she means for me to clean up by myself when I realize it's still there when I get ready for bed. Rolling my eyes, I let out a chuckle. I nodded my head, so we exited my bathroom and out the door to the clearing where we usually have ceremonies, cookouts, contests, parties, everything. Jamie, you look gorgeous. My mom greeted me with a hug while my sisters were behind her wearing matching white dresses with big white flowers in their long raven black hair. Thanks, Mom, I smiled as I hugged her back. When my mom pulled away, she looked around before looking back at me with a confused look. Where's your brother? Andrew? Probably avoiding us, I respond, chuckling. My mom embarrasses him a lot and teases him when his friends are around. It's actually pretty hilarious if you ask me. I can just see myself doing that if I become a mom. I'll be one of those chill moms. Zoe giggled. Or, he could be flirting with Reagan. All of us turned to her and raised our eyebrows. She then lifted up her hand and pointed towards a random direction. My eyes followed the direction she was pointing in and let out a laugh. Andrew was leaning against a table next to a girl about his age with nice dark skin and curly dark brown hair. She was pretty. Oh, she's cute, my mom said randomly as all of us were staring. When's the Lunar Shadow pack arriving? Shelby asked curiously when my dad walked up to us. He wrapped an arm around my mom's waist and kissed her head. All three of us groaned at them. My parents both laughed before my dad answered Shelby's question. Soon, very soon. I then felt Irene pacing back and forth in my head, muttering words I couldn't understand. The hell? Irene? I questioned my wolf. You all right? Why, I think I'm not sure, she muttered. I frowned. I wonder what's going on, maybe it'll just go by. Alright everyone, the Lunar Shadow pack is about to arrive. The guards at the boundary just informed me that they have crossed onto our territory, Alpha Brian announced. Everyone quickly checked themselves and smoothed out their clothes. Mothers attempted to fix up their children who protested. My wolf was restless and was getting worse by the minute. Serena squeezed my hand before heading to her family. I then went to my own family. Jasmine, my dad called out my name. I turned to him and raised my eyebrow. I want you to come to the front with me, he told me. I furrowed my brows. Isn't Andrew supposed to, because he'll be the future beta? I questioned. I am the oldest, but I am a female, and since I have a brother he will become the beta. Now if I was the only daughter or I had no brother, I would become the beta, which rarely happens. Usually the moon goddess provides each family with alpha, beta, or delta blood with at least one son who will take over their father's work. Sometimes on rare occasions because of fate, that family won't get a son. Well, since he's not old enough, you will come up with me as the oldest, my dad declared while placing a hand on my shoulder. Finally giving in, I nodded my head. He smiled before guiding me to those who are high-ranked. I smiled slightly when I noticed Anthony standing next to his father. At least I won't be alone. I noticed the alpha's son standing next to the alpha. They were lined up at the front of the clearing next to the warriors who were on either side. "Jamie, you look really pretty tonight," Anthony commented while flashing me his pearly whites. "Thank you," I smiled. "You look great as well." His smile widened as he slung an arm over my shoulder. I immediately shrugged his arm off. "Don't push it," I warned. Anthony just laughed as I frowned. "Behave, young children," my dad chuckled. Anthony and I laughed at my dad before everyone grew quiet as we faintly heard pounded on the forest ground off in the distance. They're almost here and my wolf hasn't settled down yet. An intoxicating scent blew past my nose as a nice breeze blew in the night. The scent smelled like a mixture of firewood and pine with a hint of cologne. Everyone in the clearing all shifted their gazes to the forest. My eyes widened when they settled on an extremely large firewood brown-colored wolf. Chapter 2. Everyone in the clearing shifted their gazes to the entrance of the forest towards the extremely large firewood brown-colored wolf that I spotted. Power radiated off of it, but something seemed different and unusual as I stared at it. Behind the wolf stood a gray wolf that was just a little smaller along with some other wolves that stood behind the gray one. I'm guessing that the brown wolf is the alpha and the gray one is the beta. "Alpha Parker, so glad of you to join us this evening," Alpha Brian spoke, and the brown wolf nodded before he growled at the wolves behind him who came and stood in front of him. The sound of bones cracking filled the air for a few seconds before it was gone. Instead of a wolf, a man stood up and just wearing a pair of dark wash jeans that hung loosely on his hips. His abs stood out, which could make any she-wolf go crazy. Damn, he's one sexy creature. I could tell from where I was standing that his jaw was well-shaped and defined. His nose looked perfect. His hair was a dark black color that was messy and sticking up in an extremely sexy way. "Welcome," Alpha Brian stated formally. Alpha Parker nodded and started walking over to him. The strange scent hit my nose again, making my wolf go crazy. I looked around cautiously until they landed on Alpha Parker again. I noticed the gray wolf had shifted as well and was standing with his arms crossed by the other wolves. As he got closer, the firewood smell get stronger. That's when I realized it was from him. "Mate," my wolf growled. My eyes went wide with horror. "Alpha Parker is my mate?" I immediately shot my gaze to the ground. This can't be happening. What the hell did I do wrong to deserve this? Why, moon goddess? I don't even want a mate, for crying out loud. Soon enough, Alpha Parker was standing in front of Alpha Brian. Keeping my eyes down, I heard him speak. "Alpha Brian." His voice was so deep and sounded so powerful, cold and emotionless. My wolf purred at the sound of it. She immediately started putting images in my head of what he could do to us. I scolded her and brushed them away. "This is my beta, James Davis," Alpha Brian said, introducing my father. I kept my head down, not wanting to look up. "Look up," my wolf snapped. "No," I quickly growled back. I could feel Irene frown. "Come on, you know you want to," she pleaded. I groaned loudly in my head. "Fine." My wolf cheered in my head, making me mentally roll my eyes at her. I allowed my eyes to drift upward and wasn't paying attention to what my alpha, my dad, and Alpha Parker was talking about. My dad turned to Alpha Brian, allowing me to quickly sneak a peek at my mate. "He doesn't even deserve that title." My wolf growled at that, but I ignored her. My eyes locked with a pair of green eyes that bored straight into mine. I shivered as they stared, getting more and more intense. His jaw clenched and then unclenched before he slowly walked towards me. He stopped in front of me. My heart pounded into my chest. Fear spread all throughout me. I'm usually not afraid of anything, but this is Alpha Parker we are talking about. He's alpha of the strongest pack, terrifying, and worst of all, my mate. Why me? What did I do wrong in life to make me suffer? Was it because of that one time when I secretly took a $100 bill from my mom's purse when I was 7, or that time when I punched my ex-boyfriend because he called me girly? "What's your name?" he asked. His deep voice held so little emotion filled my ears, breaking me out of my thoughts. Gulping, I opened my mouth but no words came out. "This is my daughter, Jasmine," my dad answered for me, making me sigh in relief. His eyes were narrowed at Alpha Parker, who was staring at me intently with his arms crossed over his perfect chest. "Mate," he growled lowly, making me shiver slightly in delight as the word printed into my mind and lingered through my ears. His voice made my wolf purr. His voice was so low that only my dad and I could hear it. His eyes widened in shock. Immediately he mind-linked me. "He's your mate." His voice held a little anger, which made my wolf growl slightly. "Yeah," I muttered, "apparently." I blocked off my dad and fixed my eyes back on Alpha Parker, who was still staring at me. His eyes were scanning me up and down and were a charcoal black color. Once they reached mine, they turned back to their green color. He then turns toward my Alpha. "I have made my decision. Next Monday my best fighters will come here and train with your pack. Therefore, I have decided on what I will get in return." His voice boomed through the clearing. It held so much power it could make a full-grown man piss himself. Alpha Parker continued, "And I always get what I want," he spoke loudly. Everyone in my pack just stared at him, fear clearly written all over their faces. They waited patiently for him to continue. "And I always get what's mine," he continued, even more intimidating, staring at me when he spoke before looking back at Alpha Brian, who didn't even notice. I shivered but frowned at him. I felt my dad grab my hand and squeezed it. I squeezed back, assuring him that it's okay. I knew that it wasn't okay. "Alpha Parker, we can discuss this more over dinner in the pack house," Alpha Brian offered as he led Alpha Parker away towards the pack house. I just stood with my eyes wide as they watched him walk away. A voice beside me's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. "What was that?" I turned to Anthony. And nothing," I quickly replied, not admitting that the Alpha Parker was my mate. Something that I honestly didn't even really want. Anthony eyed me suspiciously before shrugging it off. Everyone scattered to their homes once Alpha Brian dismissed them. Sabrina ran over to M, almost tripping in her heels. "Did you see Alpha Parker?" Sabrina was out of breath even though she hadn't had far to go. I just stared at her blankly, unsure of what to say. "Yeah." "Jamie, come on, it's time for the dinner," Anthony stated from behind me. I turned around and noticed his eyes glazed over, meaning he was being mind-linked. Nodding my head, I gave Serena a small smile before turning back to Anthony and following behind him. Both Anthony and I sat down in our spots. The room was quiet as all eyes were on us. Everyone was already seated. Were we really that much late? "Jasmine, Anthony, glad that you could join us." Alpha Brian cleared his throat while glancing at us. "Sorry, Alpha," Anthony responded respectfully. I felt goosebumps rise on my arms when I felt someone's eyes on me. Looking up from my plate, I noticed Alpha Parker already looking at me. A shiver went up my spine, but I didn't look away. My mate needs to learn quickly that he has no effect on me, even if it's a lie. He narrowed his eyes at me and I narrowed mine too. Neither of us looked away. Why isn't he looking away? I groaned internally. I bit my lip, a habit I do when I'm nervous or thinking deeply. Parker's eyes darkened and he clenched his jaw before looking away. I smiled in victory, but it faded when I realized that his eyes had darkened. It happens when werewolves are aroused. Anthony leaned towards him and whispered, "You okay, princess?" I felt a hand placed on my thigh, making me jump a little. A growl erupted from the other side of the table, making my heart rate to pick up. Everyone just stared at Parker with wide eyes. He was fuming and looked like he was ready to kill. Parker's eyes were narrowed on Anthony's hand, which was under the table, still on my thigh. Immediately I shoved Anthony's hand off my thigh and started to eat my dinner again like nothing happened. Irene purred inside my head, making me shush her. Alpha Brian cleared his throat. "Well, Alpha Parker, what is it that you want to make this deal official?" I glanced up from my food to see Parker looking at Alpha Brian. "Yes, I have," Parker stated. He paused for a second. "I want." He then turned his gaze to me. "Jasmine." Chapter 3. My mouth hung open and everyone stared at Parker with confusion. My throat felt dry as I gulped. "What do you mean you want Jasmine?" Alpha Brian asked warily. "I want, and I will take Jasmine back to my pack with me," Parker replied with his eyes narrowed. His voice is hard and intimidating. A frown formed on my face. "He can't do that. I will not go to his pack with him and leave my family and friends behind. Mate or not, I will not go with him. No." My voice came out confident. The words flew out of my mouth without much thought. Now all eyes were on me. I didn't miss the look of fury in Parker's eyes. No. His voice was deadly as he raised an eyebrow. I glanced up at him before standing up. That's right, no. I will not go to your pack with you. I'm staying here with my family. I sighed before muttering a sorry to everyone else in the room before exiting the dining room and out of the pack house, ignoring the people calling my name. Damn Parker, he can go to hell. Irene whimpered at my thoughts, but I ignored her. I turned towards the forest, debating whether I should go for a run or not. Deciding against it because of the dangers of the forest at night, I turn and run to my house. I ignore the fact I'm wearing heels and a dress because I feel great running. I swung open the front door that I had unlocked using my house key. It was dark, so I decided to turn some lights on. Not bothering to change, I plopped down on the couch and checked the time on my phone. So much for a nice dinner. Looking back at my phone, I dialed Serena's phone number. When the second ring, she picked up. Jamie, what's up? Serena's voice sounded at the other end. Taking a breath, I blurted out, Alpha Parker is my mate. Serena let out a gasp. He's your mate? Yeah. She let out a loud squeal that made me pull the phone away from my ear. I heard her start talking again. Oh my God. You finally found your mate, a sexy mate that is. I could tell she was wiggling her eyebrows. Come on, Serena. You know that I don't want a mate. Irene growled lowly at me, but I ignored her. Serena sighed. Yeah, I know. He wants me to go back to his pack with him, I say quietly. The phone was silent for a few seconds before she spoke. What did you say? I said no. I don't want to go and he can't make me. After those words left my mouth, a thunderous growl erupted behind me. Quickly I turned around on the couch and my eyes widened. Alpha Parker was standing there with his fists clenched, and his emerald eyes were a bright yellow color that sent chills of fear throughout my body. Shit, I'll call you back, Serena muttered into the phone before hanging up. Taking a deep breath, I turned back around before growling back at him. I'm not going with you. My voice held bitterness as memories of the past filled my head. Swiftly I was pinned against the couch as a loud growl filled the air. I gasped as Alpha Parker hovered above me, pinning my arms over my head. Get off of me, I seethed and squirmed under him. Ignoring me, Alpha Parker brought his lips to my ear, brushing it just barely. You are going to my pack with me. His voice got lower and more intimidating, and if you do not cooperate and be a good girl, I will not take part in the deal and say goodbye to that alliance, do you understand? My lips stayed sealed, not attempting to even respond or nod. A snarl ripped from him before he pulled away from my ear and stared me straight in the eye. Do you understand? He raised his voice and I could tell he was using his alpha tone. Gulping, I nodded. Damn it, I know I can never say no against an alpha, and this bastard knows it. Alpha Parker's eyes stay on me for a little while longer. I notice he's still not wearing a shirt. My cheeks heat up as I realize I was looking at his well-defined chest and his tattoos along his torso and on his arms. There wasn't a lot of tattoos, but just a few. A growl escaped from his chest and I looked up and gulped when I noticed his eyes were a dark forest green color. His eyes weren't focused on my face but on my legs because my dress had been bunched up my waist. His eyes then moved up to my chest. He brought his nose to my neck and inhaled deeply. Mine, he growled while dragging his nose down my neck. I shivered in delight as my wolf purred. He pulled away and then got off of the couch and walked away. I just sat up on the couch, completely confused but thankful that he left. Stupid mate bond. I woke up tossing and turning in my bed. The feeling of Alpha Parker's nose grazing my neck was still felt, and it didn't help that my wolf is putting inappropriate images in my head. Sighing, I finally climbed out of my bed and headed out of my room. Deciding on going to the pack house, I exit out of my house. The cool fall air brushed past my skin, making me shiver. I pulled my jacket tighter to my body, covering up my black tank top I didn't bother changing out of. I walked down the road passing other houses before I reached the pack house, which is at the center of the pack. Opening the door, I entered. The lights were all off except for the living room. The TV was on while Anthony was sitting on the couch. He glanced over at me and smiled. Hey, he grinned while patting the spot next to him. Smiling, I took the spot next to him. Hey, I respond. Couldn't sleep? He asks, leaning back on the couch. Shaking my head. You? Nope, he replies, popping the pea. Turning towards the TV, I noticed he was watching The Big Bang Theory. We both just continue to watch the show, not really talking. After about 2 episodes I looked over at Anthony to see he was knocked out. Turning back to face the TV I continued to watch. After a few minutes I felt something on my lap. I looked down to see Anthony's head on my lap while snoring slightly. I suppress a giggle before looking back up at the TV. I don't know when, but I felt darkness surround me as sleep took over. Light shined through my eyelids as I slowly became conscious from sleep. I felt arms around my waist which made my wolf growl. Squinting as my eyes adjusted to my surroundings, I looked down and noticed arms around my waist as I laid in between the person's legs. Turning my head I see that Anthony's already looking at me with a confused look before smirking. "Hello, princess." I rolled my eyes at his greeting, already knowing that he's enjoying this position very much. A growl came from the entrance of the living room. Both of us turned our heads to see a livid Alpha Parker. Chapter 4. Alpha Parker stood there with his eyes a bright yellow color, showing that his wolf was at surface. His jaw was clenched and so were his fists, which hung stiffly by his side. "Mine," he growled as he stalked towards us, not looking at me but glaring at Anthony. I glanced at Anthony, who had a blank look on his face. His arm was still around my waist, making Parker growl louder. Since Anthony made no move to react, I smacked his arm away from me. "Don't you touch her," Parker growled while grabbing the collar of Anthony's shirt and pulled him up so they were face to face. "You understand, pup?" I frowned before standing up and shoving Parker away from Anthony, catching him off guard. Parker snapped his head towards me and growled. I growled back before snapping, "I'm not yours, I'm not anybody's." Turning on my heel, I walked out into the kitchen in search of something to eat. I'm in the mood for something with Nutella in it. I searched through cabinets in search for the tasty goodness. I finally spotted it on the top of a shelf so high up. Letting out a frustrated groan, I bit my lip as I stood on the tips of my toes in attempt to reach. My fingers didn't reach anywhere near it, which added to my frustration. Screw my 5 feet 3 inches height. I let out a deep breath through my mouth before I pushed myself onto the counter so my knees rested on it as I continued to reach for the Nutella. "Almost there," I grumble as the tips of my fingers grazed the container just a little bit. "Damn it, why do they have to make these cabinets so high up? How do people get what they need when it's this high up?" I almost lost my balance when someone whispered deeply in my ear huskily, "What are you doing?" I gulped as I felt electricity shoot through me as I felt a hand placed on my exposed stomach. Lips grazed my ear as he spoke. Immediately I knew it was Parker. I let out a heavy breath. "Getting Nutella?" I respond before pushing his hand away from my stomach and pulled my shirt down to cover my stomach. "Why are you dressed like that?" Parker questioned, letting out a low growl. Turning my head I noticed he was standing face to face with me and a couple inches taller. Damn, he is really tall. Here I am, kneeling on a kitchen counter trying to reach for something he could easily get. "Why does it matter?" I asked, rolling my eyes as I turned back around and continued to reach for the Nutella. Swiftly I was turned around to face Parker. His eyes are a charcoal black color. "Don't you speak to me like that. Show me some respect." Parker's voice was cold and hard and he stared deadly at me, but I could see the lust in his eyes as they checked me out. I couldn't tell if he was pissed or it was his hormones. Rolling my eyes yet again, I mumbled a whatever, before getting down from the counter, suddenly not in the mood for food anymore. I decided that I'd go over to Serena's house because of Halloween next week, the day before the mate bond, which is next Saturday. Today is Tuesday, so all of the young pups are attending a human school in the nearby city. I exited the pack house and went to my house to change into something more appropriate. "I'm coming to your house," I said to Serena through MindLink. "Oh, so you think you can just invite yourself over?" Serena joked through the MindLink. "Well, you invite yourself all the time. Don't think that I haven't noticed that the chips are slowly disappearing." "My door is open," Serena finally said. I laughed at her before I entered my quiet house, hunting that everyone was still asleep. Quickly I showered, then changed into dark blue skinny jeans and a black tank top. I then pulled a purple sweater on that hung off my shoulders. After getting ready I left my house and started towards Serena's. "No. I don't want that 1 inch," I complained as Serena brought it up again. "Come on, you should totally be Jasmine for Halloween. She is your all-time favorite princess," Serena groaned. I sighed before speaking again. "I want something more cool and sexy put together, but not too sexy." Serena thought deeply as she thought about my request. She stood up and went over to her computer on her desk. "Something cool and sexy," she muttered as she typed away on her computer before a smile grew on her face. I raised my eyebrow as I observed her expression. What? Serena observed the image on her computer. Curiosity came over me, causing me to go up and look at this image myself. I stared at her computer screen. Isn't it perfect for you? Serena asks with excitement in her voice. I looked at the costume before my eyes and observed it. I guess I'm Catwoman for Halloween, I state as I nodded my head. This is a damn good costume. I turned towards Serena. Now we have to find you a costume. True, she responded, looking back at her screen and typing away. That's how we spent our morning up until the evening, searching up costumes and settling on one. After hanging out at Serena's house, I decided to go for a run. Entering the forest, I went behind a tree and undressed before shifting. I took my clothes in my mouth before taking off. The trees flew by me quickly as I ran past them. I slowed down by a river and took a nice long drink. The sound of a twig snapping caught my attention. My ears perked and I scanned the area. Lifting my nose, I sniffed the air and the familiar smell of firewood filled my nose. Another twig snapped and I darted my eyes to my left to come face to face with a firewood-colored wolf. Parker. Our wolves stared at each other. I mentally thanked the moon goddess that I wasn't such a small wolf, so I didn't feel as small compared to Parker. Yet I still feel so small. Parker lowly growled, catching me by surprise. Why is he growling at me? He took steps towards me, slowly making me step back in anticipation, which caused another growl from him. Irene had other thoughts. She was liking this side of Parker. Without thinking, I took off the other direction. A loud growl thundered through the evening air as paws pounded on the ground behind me. Great. Now I have Parker chasing after me. Irene howled in excitement as she purposely pushed to run faster. The entrance of the forest came in sight, but Parker had other plans. I was pushed to the ground. A whimper escaped me as I came in contact with the ground. I turned my head and gasped when I realized Parker's large wolf towered over me. Damn, his wolf is huge, Irene muttered in my head, her voice is filled with lust. I rolled my eyes at her before focusing on what's happening. My eyes widened as I watched Parker shift back to his human body right in front of me, not making a move to cover up his manhood. I immediately looked away. He still had my wolf pinned to the ground as I continued to struggle. Shift. I stopped struggling and stared at him. Is he for real? Who does he think he is, demanding me to shift? Parker growled at me. Shift. His alpha tone filled my ears. Damn it. Slowly my bones cracked, and next thing I know, I'm back in my human self. I looked back at Parker and gasped when I noticed his eyes were a charcoal black and his eyes were staring at my face. Thank goddess he's not looking any lower. Parker leaned down towards my ear and he growled. Next time, his voice got lower, which caused shivers to run down my spine. Don't run from me. I will not be responsible for my actions. I gulped as I slowly nodded. Good. Now, what are you doing out here? Going for a run. I usually go for one every evening if I have the chance. I keep my voice from shaking because of our closeness. This is pathetic. Why am I acting like this? The mate bond, duh, Irene responded to my rhetorical question. Go back to the pack house, mate, Parker spoke, emphasizing mate as he climbed off of me and stood up. I crossed my arms over my bare chest as I sat up, making sure I covered my boobs. Why? I asked as I glared at him. Parker looked taken aback by my questioning before he clenched his jaw and returned the glare. Because I said so, he huffed. Anger boiled up inside of me. You can't tell me what to do, I snapped back. Sure, he is an alpha, but he is my mate. What? Parker's eyes flashed a little yellow before returning to the black. He stormed towards me before taking my jaw in his hand. He didn't squeeze it so it'll hurt, but enough to have control of it. Listen to me, little mate, I will tell you what to do and you better do it. I will punish you and I can assure you I will enjoy it more than you will, so don't tempt me, Parker growled at me with a clenched jaw. I shivered at his voice with my eyes wide. I quickly nodded my head as I turned my head away from him. Yes, Alpha, I spat at him before turning on my heel before stopping. Damn it, I forgot my clothes by the river. Shaking my head, I continued walking away. Parker watched me with anger in his eyes. I felt his eyes on me as I walked away. Get your eyes off my ass, I called out with annoyance when on the inside I was freaking out. I didn't wait for his response because I was already mind-linking my mom. Hey mom, can you get me some clothes? I asked my mom through the mind link. Sure honey. Where do you want me to drop off your clothes? My mom asked. Just by the entrance of the forest behind the pack house, I answer. I continued towards the entrance of the forest. The cold fall air blew past me, causing me to shiver. When did it get so cold out here? When I reached towards the entrance, my mom was already there with my clothes. I thanked her and got dressed before I followed her back to our own house.